So my buddy bought this here Masi Uno Riser, and he wanted me to take a look at it and inspect it and improve it wherever I could. So keep watching and we'll see what's wrong with it and fix it up for him. So as we can see, like the paint looks pretty good. Immediately I can see that one of the chainring bolts is missing, and you can just tell that the chain is a little bit slack there. So we're gonna have to fix that up for him. But those aren't very difficult things to fix, and it's not really bad. Can't really hold a seller accountable in that way. I don't know what that says on the frame. So one of the things that he wants me to do is replace the handlebars and the grips. Here are the OEM bars and the grips. One thing I'm going to have to do is change the stem, because this here stem is 25.4 millimeter clamp, and the bars that he gave me are 31.8. He also mentioned that he had some problems trying to undo the clamp bolts, so we'll have to take a look at that too and pay attention to that so we don't strip anything out. Now I'm looking here and I see that the brakes are okay, but the pads, you know, they're the old cheap kind, like just kind of like OEM pads they put on to save money or whatever it is. I think what I'll do is I'll change the brake pads for him, and that should improve the braking, because you know, he's using this to get to work, do his part-time job and all that. Like I mentioned before, there's a chainring bolt missing, so we'll have to pay attention to that and fix it up as best we can. Everything else looks all right, except for, like I said, that slack chain, but that's nothing. That just happens, and you can kind of see that the axle and the dropout is all the way to the front, so maybe when he bought this, the seller just didn't bother tightening the chain up, and it's only going to move maybe a couple millimeters. So the rear brake looks a little rusty, but it works fine. These kinda contender tires are a little cracked, but you know, you can still use these. He may as well use them up and get his money's worth. So one thing I noticed is that this has a seat post clamp, which seems kind of odd. I haven't really looked the bike up, so maybe I'll do that. Here we go. I'm just going to show you. I have my bag of brake pads, and I have these stems here. I have a specialized kind of a riser stem. I'm not going to go into detail on that. And I have this here Bontrager 100 millimeter stem. And I'm going to need my tools here, Allen wrenches, and here are the oversized bars, and the grips are on it. I'm just going to start here by loosening off the brake levers so that we can get some alcohol or whatever underneath the grips and slide them off. So just do it on either side. It's not really a big deal. I'm not going to go into great detail on this. We're reusing the brake lever, so obviously we want to take them off. I know we're not going to be using these grips because there are really nice grips on the other bar that he has, and I'm just going to try to slide this off with that alcohol in there, but sometimes it doesn't work, so you need a little more, and you just kind of work it in. Try not to rip the grip, but I think these are pretty decent grips. They're not really going to rip, but you never know, so just take your time, try to do it as best you can. I don't really know if it's a one-piece grip here or if those are bar end plugs, but we're gonna find out. Like, if it was one piece, it should have come off by now. Like, I've kind of spread that alcohol underneath the whole grip. Well, it's a bar end, so so here we go. I should just be able to slide it off here, but wow, that's really being stubborn. Okay, well, you just keep working at it, and you know, a lot of guys will just cut the grips off. I've seen that many times, like, you know, perfectly fine grips, and they just don't want them anymore, so they just cut them off. But that's not really what we do here. Like, I'm more of a collector, recycler, so I'm just going to reuse them. Now, I had some trouble trying to get the left brake lever off, so the front brake lever, and now we have to loosen the clamp bolts. Now, the problem I think that my buddy there was having, or whoever, was they weren't using a Torx wrench. They were just using the regular Allen key, and it just wasn't catching enough. So, like I said, I just used my Torx key here, and yeah, this bar end was like stuck. I just pulled out this bar here, and we're done with that. There you can see Brev M, basically the Masi brand. Now, there's a whole history to that, and I'm not going to get into that. So we'll just take off the top cap, and I just want to measure my stem length here that fits on the steer tube, because I may need an extra spacer just in case. So here we'll just loosen off the bolts. You know, it's nothing This is pretty generic. It's nothing new. There we go. It's loose. Just slides right off. And that was a pretty long stem. I think that was like 110 millimeters. And I'm just going to fix these spacers here. Just kind of line them up nice. Now, we just got to see. It looks about right. Yeah, that should be good enough. And we'll just put the top cap back on. Screw it down. Line everything up and get a little bit of preload on there. And I'm going to go with that because I'm going to need the wheel on the ground to just kind of line everything up anyway. So I'm just going to tighten up the stem clamp bolts here a little bit, and we'll fix it in a little. So there we go. We got a bit of preload. We have the stem clamped onto the steer tube, and now we're just going to use a star pattern to tighten up the clamp on our new bars. And I didn't really notice this, but these are also Bontrager bars, so it kind of matches the stem that I had. Nice little gift for my buddy there, and hopefully he appreciates it. So we just kind of tighten it up, like I said, in a star pattern. That way we try to get the torque even on every bolt. So we're just going to slide these grips on. Screwed up, and I have to put the brake levers on. So I just took them off, and now, of course, I'm having the same problem. I can't fit the front lever on the bar, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to loosen off the cable tension on the caliper, and that should give me enough slack to just put the brake lever on the bar. Now, the reason I'm doing that is simply because I'm going to be changing the brake pads anyway, so I'm going to have to take the tension off the cable anyways, so that I can have enough room to put on my new brake pads, and I guess they're brake shoes? Whatever, you know, the brake pad holders. So these grips here are ergon. I didn't notice that either, and they're actually pretty nice. Here you go. Just slide these on, and we're not going to be able to fit bar ends on these because there's some kind of weirdness with the bar. I didn't really show it, but you know, that's just something with these Bontrager bars, and I don't really think it matters. It's probably for the best. That way you can't really lose them. So we're just going to tighten up these grips, and they're on as far as they can go. Make sure that they're kind of in the right place. This guy's he's bigger than I am, but I can kind of gauge where his hand position is going to be and where the butt of his hands are going to be on the grips. So we'll just tighten on these brake levers, and again, like, I'm just going to kind of gauge where the levers are for him, and you know, if he needs to change them, I'm just going to show him how to change them himself. So we're just going to move on over to these brake pads. They've been on there for a while. Like, this is 2015, this bike, and everything on here seems to be OEM, so original equipment manufacturer, and basically they're just the stock parts. And I'm guessing that the brake pads are getting close to done, and even if they're not, like, the one thing that you don't want to mess around with too much of your brakes. So I'm gonna put these brake pads on here, and as you can see, they're pretty good quality. They're actually off of a 105 5800 brake caliper set, and it's one of those things. I ended up with them because somebody else had their own brake pads or whatever it might be, and well, whatever. Now I have these, and they're going on my buddy's bike, and they will outperform the old pads that came on the stock brakes. So we just put them on, just kind of gauge where it would sit, and I'm just going to show you the one side here. I did the other side, but you can't really see it, and it's really hard to get a good angle on that, and really it's pretty repetitive. So I'm just going to retension the cable here and see where we're at with the brake pads. Now I'm just going to do the front, and again, I'm just going to place it in, like, you know, I'm going to gauge where it is on the rim, and I'm not going to show you the other side because there's no point. Like, it's very simple. It's just a 4mm Allen key, and you just try to gauge where they are, tighten them up a little bit, and then get your tension on the brake caliper, and then reposition the brake pads as needed. Now, the way I tend to do it is I just kind of find where the brake pad should be, just tighten it on a little bit, and then I clamp the brake lever, then fix it from there, and then that way you can get your toe in proper, basically just the proper placement, so there's no squealing. Honestly, I've never really had squealing on road bike brakes, but I guess it can happen. So, just one of those things. I just want to make sure I do a good job for my buddy because, you know, he's trusting me with his bike, and obviously there are things wrong with it. Again, the crank is missing a chainring bolt, and there's a problem with the chain. There's too much slack. So, what I'm going to do is just quickly gauge how far back the wheel needs to be pulled, and it's really not that far, so I'm pretty sure what happened is the seller just, you know, they were doing something. Maybe they changed the chain ring or whatever, and they needed slack on the chain and just didn't bother tightening the chain back up. Maybe my buddy was too quick for him. I don't know. You know, you can speculate all you want, but it's really not that big of a deal, and it's not a bad thing. So the chain's a little tighter here. There's still some slack, so I'm just going to make sure that, you know, I get it as tight as I can. And there you go. Nice tight chain, and it works perfectly fine. Like, you can see there's no slack, there's no bowing in the chain. And now we have to just inspect this crank here, and actually the other chain... The other chainring bolts are also loose, which would probably explain why one's missing. Now, I guess what might have happened is maybe it was loose and it just kind of rattled off. Like I said, I can only speculate, but really all I can do is just fix it for my buddy so that, you know, the bike is safe for him to ride. Like, having loose chainring bolts, it's not really safe. Like, what happens if another bolt were to rattle off, right? The chain could fall off, he could fall off, you know, and it's not really what we're looking for. We're just looking to fix it up so that it's safe and rideable. So what I did here is I just inserted the front part, basically the threaded part of the chainring bolt, into the rear part, and now I'm just gonna use a star pattern and tighten up these chainring bolts. I'm gonna see how far I can tighten them up without using the special tool that grabs onto the back part of the bolt. So basically the female part of the bolt. And sometimes they'll just tighten right up and it won't be a problem. Other times you're gonna need that little tool. In this case here, they're tightening up. The way you can really tell is essentially both the male and female parts of the bolt will just start spinning around in the hole, and you need something to just hold the back part in place. There's kind of like two little nibs, like inserts, and it holds it. So we're just going to double check the chain here. Since we've gone this far, we may as well check and make sure that's a proper chain line, just in case the reason those bolts were loose was because the seller was changing the chain ring. The chain line looks really good. So we've replaced the stem, and we replaced the bars, and we replaced the grips. We just kind of gauged where his hand placement would be. We redid the tension on the brake cable. We replaced the brake pads. And of course, over at the crank, we replaced one bolt. We retightened all the bolts. We literally just pulled the wheel back a little bit to retighten the chain. And we checked the chain line. Now, we also did the rear brake, cable tension, and replaced the pads. So, I hope you like this video, and I hope my buddy enjoys his new bike. If you want to see some other DIY bike videos, you can click right here.